Welcome back to Incubate Talent, where today we'll be spotlighting the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama and an incredible STEM educator and advocate, Angela O'Neill. Angela has been involved in STEM across the region for over 20 years, helping lead science museums, teach in elementary schools, and serving as the STEM director for the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama, who are committed to providing high-quality STEM experiences for their members, especially those in underserved communities. The Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama is also an anchor organization, helping lead the design and implementation of regional STEM learning ecosystems like the newly formed STEM Alliance of North Alabama, or SANA. During this episode, Angela shares so many great insights for how those of you in industry can get engaged, different strategies for helping raise awareness for parents, the incredible work they're doing in the community, and much, much more. We hope you enjoy this episode. All right, welcome back to Incubate Talent, and today we have joining us Angela O'Neill. Angela, welcome.
Hi, and so nice to be here today. Or actually, I guess you're in my
I was
space
about to
today.
say.
You're like, I'm not in your space, you're in my space today. So thanks for coming to visit.
Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for hosting us. This is a great space, and I can't wait to just hear more and share more about the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama. So let's start there. You want to do an introduction of yourself?
Sure. So my name is Angela O'Neill. I'm the STEM director for Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama. I've actually been with Boys and Girls Club for a little over 8 years now, but I've actually been in STEM education in informal sense for about 25 years here in Huntsville. Nice. My background, actually, I worked at a science museum here in town that was here for a really long time. It closed. And the joke that the Boys and Girls Club staff has is that they were waiting for me in the parking lot, which they weren't exactly, but they were pretty close. We had a previous relationship with the Boys and Girls Club, so I worked for a museum called SciQuest. It was a small science center here in town. And I was the education director there. So I had a relationship with the Boys and Girls Club, and we had done programming and things like that with them. They had asked me to actually come in and help them with a STEM grant that they had just gotten from the Raytheon Company. So I actually came in, gave them my advice, did some other stuff with them, and just kind of went on my way. And then a job opened up. So at the time the Science Center was closing, I was really looking for something a little bit with less pressure, honestly. I was looking to go back part-time and work directly with kids. And so then I interviewed for the job and realized it was the space that I had helped them design. So it was the exact space that they had asked for my advice on, was the space that they were actually hiring to work for.
Familiar?
Yeah, it was a little weird. If I'm being honest, it was kind of like, wait, I've been here before. So I actually started working at the Williams Club. I was out at Williams Elementary. I worked there just part-time. I was 15 hours a week. Okay. And it was lovely. And I learned a ton about actually working with kids every day. I had 18 years before I started working there. But when you work with the same sets of kids every single day, you get to know them on an incredibly deep level. Yeah. And then what happened was, because we had a STEM facility like the one that you're sitting in now, it was furnished by Raytheon. It was part of a national grant. And we were in year one of the grant, and what part of the grant was some assessment pieces that Boys and Girls Club of America did. Okay. And the data just came back really, really good. There were 20-30% jumps in interest in STEM. Yeah. And so our CEO was like, wait a second, this is actually working. So then we worked to actually put these types of spaces in all of our clubs. And then my role had kind of grew along with the program. And I've been working, like I said, I've been working here ever since. And it's a really wonderful job. And I get to know all the kids across our entire organization really well, which is really great. So I say I'm kind of the nerd of the Boys and Girls Club.
Hey, this nerd, I feel like every single episode we've had, the word nerd has been used.
Oh, sure.
This is a safe place.
We own it, right? Yeah, that's me.
Exactly. It's important for kids to know that too. Right. It is okay to embrace it.
Yeah. And that's part of what we're really trying to do here is to, there's kind of several pillars of the STEM program at Boys and Girls Club, but they're all rooted in youth development. We really want the kids to see themselves in these types of careers, but if you don't know anybody who's been in those careers, you can't possibly go into them. So you can't dream a dream you haven't seen. And that's really one of the very things that we really want the kids to be able to say is wait, I like STEM. I'm good at it. I know somebody already who's in those fields, so I can do it too.
Yeah. And I mean, I would love to hear more about how industry helps participate in y'all's missions. Before we get there, I mean, you mentioned the pillars, right? So what are the pillars of the Boys and Girls Club?
Right. So the Boys and Girls Club mission is to inspire and enable all young people, especially those who need us the most, to realize their full potential to be productive, responsible, and caring citizens. So what we're trying to do there is so we're really trying to get kids to reach their full potential. We have several nationally, we have several pillars. One of them is academics. So we really want all kids to graduate from high school with a plan for the future. We want them to have healthy lifestyles and make good choices as far as food and exercise goes. We want them to also have great citizenship as well. So I tell my staff when I'm doing training on these is that it's just a formula for a good person.
Yeah.
So we're really looking to have these kids. I tell the kids all the time, especially when I'm working with like elementary school kids, I'm not in the business of helping you be an okay person. I'm in the business of making you a great person.
Yeah.
So what does great actually look like? It's those things. The STEM program is in the academics section of that, but it really does touch all sorts of things. So Boys and Girls Club, we have targeted power hour, which is targeted homework time. So we are after school program, out of school time learning. So they have to do their homework when they're here. We will all make them because mom and dad work. They may not have mom. They may not have
and
dad.
as a parent, that's something that I greatly appreciate organizations who help.
And statistically, that's the biggest thing that an after-school program, that's what parents really want, right? Because they're working till 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. They don't have time. They don't have brain space to make sure their kids are getting their homework done. So after-school programs do that. So we're going to make sure that kids get their homework done. 80% of our kids are on free or reduced lunch. So most of our kids, then we will have food for them. So they get fed. And then after they get their homework done, we have what we consider rotation classes. So they'll rotate into different areas of the club. So STEM is an area, art's an area, character and leadership's an area, and sports is an area. So they'll rotate around basically in a week, like in after school, they'll get all of those areas.
Get exposure to all
of those areas. In the summer, we're open 8 to 5, so we're open all day. So then we can do a whole bunch more stuff, which is really great. When I came on board, STEM was not a rotation area. It was just education. We still have literacy and things like that. That's mainly for our younger kids at this point. So our K2 program is specifically focused on literacy and making sure that those kids are reading on grade level.
Got it.
I tell people a lot, we're kind of a full stack kid development kind of program. So we are really looking at them as whole people across the entire spectrum.
And so if we look at STEM specifically and what you're leading, what does that look like? What kind of things are you doing in STEM?
So we're really looking at really 3 main areas that we're really trying to make sure that so we can get kids into STEM fields. So the overall goal for the program is to make a diverse workforce in STEM. I think everybody knows, and you probably know better than anyone because you're out here talking about this, is that we're sitting in the perfect storm in industry with STEM, right?
Yeah.
We are running out of people and getting more jobs.
Yeah.
My father is an engineer, and he would tell me every day about how little engineers there were. And the ones that were graduating didn't have the skills that he needed. My husband's an aerospace engineer, works for the Army. He's like, do you have any engineers? I really need to hire some people.
High demand,
right? And at the same time, we don't need the same types of people running into these careers because if we're innovative, we're trying to invent things and solve big problems and do a whole bunch of different stuff. You have the exact same people in the job, you won't go anywhere.
No.
Right? So you have to have a diverse workforce. It just has to. And that's kind of baked into STEM. So we don't really have to make initiatives or anything. It's just kind of there.
Yes.
So people that come from diverse backgrounds, diverse socioeconomic places will do actually a much better job in those fields because they feel it, because they know they need the help, right? So if you're a person who is directly affected by climate change, you're going to be more because low-income areas are actually more affected by climate change than non-areas, specifically because of heat islands and all sorts of crazy stuff like that.
End up making the better professionals to go,
making better, those types of things. So I'm really looking at the fact that talent is equally distributed across our society, and opportunity is not. So how do I level that playing field? How do I remove those roadblocks? So the first thing we do is we have space, right? So what you're sitting in right now is our is kind of this is kind of the deluxe version, if I'm being honest, because this is my main lab. But we have a specific look that we're going for whenever you go into a STEM lab based on research of what's going to be interesting to kids. So we're not getting any straight lines. We've got curvy tables. Everything's on wheels. We can move things around. We put a standard set of equipment in there, computer, 3D printer, lab equipment, TVs, making sure that we have just kind of standard stuff. That gets us off the ground. Then we're going to kind of do so that's the first kind of main thing. We want to have cool spaces. So when the kids come in, they go,
they gotta be able to see it. It's gotta be tangible.
And I think sometimes we forget what power the space has. And again, because of my museum background, I know that that's important. Like it's got to have a certain look, which we really appreciate. And we've been able to fund those with industry partners and for the most part in grants and things like that. So once you have stuff, that's fine. Then you have to have like activities and equipment and things like that make sense. And so we have kind of really 3 lanes of programming. We have exposure programming. Then we have really kind of specials, things that the kids are interested in signing up for. And then we have like capstone experiences for our older kids. So at the early elementary level, we're really looking at just exposure.
Right.
Like what's all the different types of things that we can give the kids in age-specific types of ways. So as they rotate into our area, we'll just do a whole bunch of different stuff. They're usually unit studies on different things. And then as they get older, so you're 5th grade, 4th grade, somewhere around
there. And these are more the specials.
Yeah, okay. So then we do an assessment with them every year. And then we're going to start going, oh, wait, I have a whole bunch of kids who like robots. Or I have a whole bunch of kids who like gardening. I have a whole bunch of kids who like building stuff. So then we're going to do classes and things that are specific to that group. It is what we consider a pull-out program, so they'll sign up to be in that specific time, so we'll carve out time in our schedule.
Got it. Okay.
And then they'll just come in for that. So our competition robotics program is a really good example of that. So we're with First Robotics, so we do junior, first Lego League teams and junior teams. So
nice.
And regular teams. I'm jumping to high school at some point soon is because I grow with the kids.
Do they actually go out and compete?
Yes. Yeah? Yes. So, and that is, it is a good amount of work for sure, but I think it's really worth it because they're going to get just a lot of depth. And what I think was probably the coolest thing now that we're in the competition kind of program is that none of the other teams treat our kids any different. You know, coming from underserved populations, sometimes you get like what I like to call the Boys and Girls Club face. Oh.
Really?
Yeah. And in robotics, you don't, because it's all about what you did, right? And in STEM in general, it's just about what you're able to accomplish. Yeah. It has nothing to do with anything else. Yeah. It's not all that way across the entire sector, but in STEM specifically, it is really about what you produce. So then we have classes, and then at the high school level, we have what I consider capstone experiences, which is what I just got back from last week. And those are experiences for, instead of at the club level, they're at multi-clubs where I'll bring certain kids together to do certain things at the high school level. Our kids are wonderful, and they're very busy at the high school level, as they should be.
Yes.
So we bring them together for very targeted, specific things. Like we just got back from Washington, D.C. to do a climate advocacy program, a partnership with Boys and Girls Club Greater Washington.
That's wonderful.
So that's stuff. And then finally, I have a college intern program, and that's the people that go along that do all these things. So I have a space, I have programming, and then we have a college intern program. We recruit out of local colleges, so and Auburn, Alabama as well. They are STEM majors. I am getting secondary ed science majors from A&M, so that's coming.
I was going to ask, are they teachers or are they helping?
Not.
Okay.
No, so I'm really looking for nerds who have a heart for the community. I really am looking for college age people who really wants a part-time job that is working and kind of sharing what they know.
Yeah.
When they interview, that's usually the thing I'm looking for is a lot of them will say, I know all this stuff. I just want to be able to share it. I didn't have anybody like me in my life. I want somebody, I want to help some other kids. So they are from, I have 16 interns right now. And they're in a diverse set of majors as well.
Wow,
So I have
that's a lot.
biology majors, cybersecurity majors, engineering majors, and they are the boots on the ground. Actually, I teach too, but I mean, they're doing the work every day of out there working with the kids, and we match them with the interest of the kids. So if I have computer science kids, I'm going to put a computer science major with them so that they can like really get like a real cool experience. Because especially in computer science, it's actually really easy because they'll be like, okay, see what you're coding here with this cute little block coding. Let me show you my homework. And then they'll see their big stuff in, in C++ or something like that. And they're like, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing, and then they can make that connection that they've seen it. Or I had, he actually is now working for a video game company proper, but I had one who was majoring in video game development. And so he was teaching kids how to make video games.
When we were talking, was it your daughter working on like the video editing skills?
Yeah. So, all of this gets a little personal for me because my own kids.
Of course.
And she's been in it since she was in second grade. She goes to cyber school now as a high school. We have 12 students from the Boys and Girls Club that are in the cyber high school in the Alabama School of Cyber Technology. So we have a really great partnership with them. They're wonderful. And so she's learned just a myriad of skills. So she knows how to video edit. She can code. She can do robots. She can do all sorts of stuff. And she credits the club with all of that. We gave her her first job. We've given several kids their first job. We have a youth training program where in my department, they're assistants. So they're middle schoolers, actually. So they're 7th and 8th graders. And we'll give them a weekly stipend to help out in the club.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So,
almost like as an ambassador and coming in and helping.
Help, but we really want them, again, if workforce is my goal, if I'm trying to, I really need them to understand that, one, STEM does pay things, right? Yeah. So here's a stipend. And then they go, oh, wait, I can work. Oh, this is a job I can have. This is a career I can have. So I'm really looking at it from every possible perspective. Yeah. We're really lucky here to have really great partnerships across the community and a really awesome upper management and CEO that really sees that vision and kind of lets me go.
Yeah. Well, and I love the thought of the internships, and you have these students from higher ed who are coming in, and even though they may not be teachers by trade at the moment, right? There's probably a spark and a passion there as they're working with kids and being able to do those things.
Some of them have gone into teaching. I've got several who are actually like working as high school science teachers now, but a lot of them aren't, and they just felt really strongly that they did not have, good mentors, or they wanted themselves to share their knowledge. Yeah. So it is like kind of really community service work at the end of the day for these kids. And I'm always so thankful for the expertise. We do give them quite a bit of training. So because you know how to code does not mean you know how to run a set of kids. So that's a whole different thing. So, and then in addition, they have mentorship with us as well. So they sit down with us every week, just check in, see how they're doing. I started it just to like make sure that they were okay with their lesson plans and stuff, but because they get a lot of say in what they're doing, it ends up being a lot of life stuff, if I'm being honest, because they're college kids.
Yeah.
And, like, hey, you were sick. Did you talk to your professor? What classes are you taking? You may not want to take those ones together. Like those types of environments are really cool.
Let's talk about your ecosystem, and you're already describing it in many ways, whether it's working with the schools or obviously within this community. So if we take a step back and just look at North Alabama, what does the ecosystem look like for you, and who you partner with, and even specific to the journey we're going on right now with the regional STEM ecosystems, and what design looks like?
So we're really happy to be part of the STEM ecosystems program. For me, it's an opportunity to really codify the program that I already have and make it stronger and more effective, because we're always stronger together than we are by ourselves. And if I'm looking at this from my kids' perspective, I need as many awesome people in their lives as possible so that they have the best chance of actually being successful and going into these career fields. Again, because we need 1 million of these people, right? Like there's so many. So I've been in the field for a long time. I know of a lot of people. A lot of times we just don't have time to partner the way that we should.
Yeah.
I mean, and because we're all busy doing our own thing, right? And getting a more formal is probably not the right word, but a more cohesive, probably look at one, what's out there, two, who's doing the best things in both in those areas. That's really important. A lot of people, for instance, don't know that we see 1,000 children a day.
Really? That?
Yep. In the summer, we see 1,000 children a day. We have access to their grades.
Mm-hmm.
We have transportation. So there's a lot of roadblocks that other organizations have, but the organizations have wonderful spaces
Yes.
and can go and do cool things, and they don't know how to get to these kids. And then, but they don't even think to talk to us because they're just busy, right? So I think that that's really important for me, but this is stuff I will use on day one. Like, this is not an academic exercise to me. This is, I have kids I know right now who need this because, again, they need the best of us. If they are coming from underserved populations, the same as everybody else doesn't cut it. It has to be the best.
Yeah.
Because that's what they're dealing with, a whole bunch of extra pressures that other kids may or may not be dealing with. And for me, then those kids that may not have those problems, they're just accelerated. They get all the benefits. So if you design for the kids that really have the most roadblocks, everybody benefits.
Certainly. And geographically, like within this area, I mean, we're sitting here in North Huntsville, in an important community that you all serve. Where else does your reach go?
So we have 15 locations across the North Alabama region. So it's there's 5 locations in Huntsville. We have 3 locations in Decatur.
Okay.
We have one over in Scottsboro, one up in Ardmore, and one in Athens. So that's kind of the polygon that we cover.
Yeah.
And in those smaller communities, our clubs have been there for, like, we've actually been in Madison County for 82 years. Yeah. So it was originally the Boys Club. It wasn't the Boys and Girls Club. So if you speak to people who are a little bit more seasoned, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I went to the Boys Club. And you're like, oh, you've been there for a really long time.
It's a different time.
Yeah. So there's a lot of history with the organization as well, which I did not know when I first came here. I was like, oh, okay. Like, me at 8.5 years in, I am the baby still in this organization. I've got people been here 28, 29 years, which is insane.
I mean, if they've been doing it for that long, though, I mean, passionate people, but some fresh perspectives.
And again, it takes everybody, right?
Yeah.
And so because we've got a larger footprint than just Madison County, we're really looking to engage the people that are doing STEM, maybe out like in Scottsboro. There are great people doing STEM things. Like Fort Payne does an amazing work in robotics, but they're way out in Fort Payne by themselves. So how do you bring those people in? So we are an anchor organization, and I think the reason why is because we do have that kind of footprint across the whole entire region, which is really great.
Yeah, it's one huge benefit, right? And as you're trying to pull the Fort Paynes and just other counties, Mississippi to Georgia. Helping with that geographic divide a little bit is going to help bring them together, but that collective design, I think, is going to make everybody better.
So the other anchor in our workforce region is Hudson Alpha.
Sure.
So, and we've been really strategic about really talking to each other a lot. So we're going to be heavily involved in each other's design processes. So Hudson Alpha is going to probably center on Madison County, but we will be involved in their design studios. They'll be with ours as well. So we really are going to collaborate as far as what this ends up looking like, because we have a long history with Hudson Alpha. And I can't think of a better partner as far as like really understanding like what we need to do in workforce to make sure that we have opportunities for everybody. I mean, Hudson Alpha is Hudson Alpha. They're kind of everywhere.
And Kelly and her group, I mean, even the workshops up to this point and the thought that they put into it. I mean, it's great. But focusing in Madison County, there'll be a great organization to do that because it's often referred to as an island. There are almost these unique unique industries,
Yep.
but unique communities as well.
Right.
You get out, you go right over the mountain and things change.
And it's
right?
different. I mean, and that's kind of one of the things that the joke in Boys and Girls Club is once you've been to one Boys and Girls Club, you've been to one Boys and Girls Club because we're a grassroots organization where we're actually really in the community and we really are trying to look at what that community actually needs. So we have like spaces like this one. This is a converted school. So because the fact that we are in public housing, we actually have a different transportation model here. We actually pick kids up from their houses and take them home directly to their houses. So we do a pickup stuff just for safety.
That's great. I mean, transportation.
Right. So we're located inside schools. Mm-hmm. So they're like, they ain't going anywhere. We don't have to worry about buses. They're right there. And then we have standalone facilities as well where the buses will drop off. So, and I think that's really what's one of the things that the ecosystem is really going to have to look at is like, how do we be effective for that community that may look a little differently? Because Huntsville is got so much like STEM and technical workforce people. So what they need may be a little bit different than what a Scottsboro needs, what Ardmore needs. But there's also a lot of employees that live in those like those communities as well. So there's feeder pattern. There's feeder pattern things to look at as well. Like we have a club in Priceville, but most of those parents, they work in Huntsville. Mm-hmm. They're just because of housing prices and things like that, everybody keeps moving a little further out. So even companies that may be based in Huntsville have a lot of employees that are out in that area. Like Toyota has that type of thing too. So they look at their employee pattern as well. So that's one of the ways that we talk to industry is about like, well, where are your employees? Yeah. So that's a community your employees live in. They need help too in after school.
So if we zoom out a little further, mm-hmm. Boys and Girls Club in general, I was at an event yesterday, a great event, Sloss Tech, which is led by Tech Birmingham, and it was great just to see that community come together around tech, and obviously it's more centered around professionals, but I noticed a Boys and Girls Club chapter there. What does the internal ecosystem of Boys and Girls Club look like across the state? Okay, so we're so I would say the easiest way to think about Boys and Girls Club is probably kind of like franchises. Okay. So we have Boys and Girls Club of America. They set specific things so that you can say you're a Boys and Girls Club. Mm-hmm. So and then there are governance and things like that. So make sure that you are a Boys and Girls Club. Then you go down to like actual regional things. So like there's Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama. There's Boys and Girls Club of Central Alabama. There's Boys and Girls Club of Wiregrass. There's a whole bunch of different ones. And then we have a state alliance we'll work together on. But all of the regions have their own boards and their own staff and those types of things. So we don't necessarily answer to anybody in the state, but we do collaborate quite a bit. Well, that's good. And is that through events or shared resources? Because I think that there's a lot to learn from you all, right? And as we're forming ecosystems.
Some of both. So some of it is we'll do training things. So at the national level, we get certified as trainers once you have a certain level of experience and things like that. And so then we're like on a list. So like we hosted the state training conference. There'll be opportunities for funding where we'll go in together for funding. And then we have like conferences where we'll all get together. And then my CEOs are really, really good and really believes in other CEOs being together and kind of collaborating. So he has a network of CEOs that he collaborates with, and that's how. And then I have other STEM people that I collaborate with across the country. So we're just trying to kind of share ideas and best practices and things like that. And the national organization kind of just helps connect everything together. So yeah, it is a good point. Like we actually really do have something that probably could be modeled for the state as well.
For sure. And as we talk about the regional STEM ecosystems, and it sounds like, again, you all being an ACRE organization is going to be a great thing because there is a great model there as far as like what do the ecosystems look like? Mm-hmm. What do we want them to look like? And they're all different, mm-hmm. right? But how they work together is going to be vital. What do you want to see out of design? If you fast forward a little bit, what do you want to see happen that's not happening today?
I just want everything to be more effective. So what from my planning thing, so I decided to do more focus groups. And so like where Hudson Alpha had done like a really nice big large one, I went kind of small because I was much more interested in how did people who actually ended up in STEM fields, how they get there. So if we're going to design something, I got to look at that end user, right? And go, okay, well, like the STEM pipeline, if you did any research at all, is a lie, right? It's leaky. Like a ton of kids go in and hardly any of them come out, right? So but there is that tiny bit of that worked, right? There's a tiny bit of people that actually the pipeline did work for them. So what's special about them? So that was really what I was interested in talking to the STEM professionals about. And what we ended up finding out is that what they wanted to be when they grew up was actually pretty close to where they ended up for real.
Really?
So like a lot of people who want to be astronauts when they were 8, and well, they live here. I was one of them. And just looking at everybody's career, I think that's the thing is like there's a whole lot of different things that happen to you to get you where your career is, and we should make those more effective. So they're not just kind of random. Like they need to be so much more intentional. So that, for instance, if I have a kid or a group of children who really I know they like to garden, what experiences should they have to expand on that, right?
And what kind of
what's around to do that?
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And if we had, that's what I really would like the ecosystem to be, because then if you're the botanical gardens, for instance, you can go, I already know I have a group of kids. I have a program that I really think would be really great. Oh, wait, I already have a group of kids I can already get that to. Mm-hmm. And I know they'll like it. And then they'll be like, oh my gosh, I get to go to botanical gardens again. This is fantastic because I love plants, and then everything just does. And then if they want to move around, they can move around. That's fine. But I think a lot of times we're just kind of shooting in the dark. What I hear from industry is that the only way that they know where to put their dollars is a lot of times from their employees themselves. So they don't know what's out there. And that was something that came out of the focus groups very strongly, is that the industry really wants to put their money where it makes the most difference, but they don't even know where that is.
Yeah.
So they're just waiting for people to come and talk to them, or their employees are like, hey, these people are really cool. And although we love all that type of stuff, right, there may be ways to kind of work together to make impact more effective.
And so let's talk about industry and the role that they play. And you've already described some today, and just adding perspective of the career pathways, mm-hmm. and obviously working in some of the unique workforce that's here in Huntsville. But what does that look like as far as the industry participation that you want to see in the future?
I think, so generally when we talk to industry has, I would say, a different type of view of what they think they should be doing, but versus what they probably could be doing. Mm-hmm. We'll get industry that comes in and says, oh, we'd like to come speak to some children. Okay. You do realize it's 6:00 at night when you want to go do that, and they've been at school all day. And then they're like, oh, I wonder if they're bored. Well, yeah, so that's usually like the first thing they'll ask to do is like, hey, I want to come speak to some kids.
And that's a start. The time commitment.
Yeah, the time commitment. What we start to say is, and this is where the other industry, like the other nonprofits can really help, is we'd like you to come in and do something with the kids.
Yeah.
Like instead of just coming in and talking to them about their career, don't even tell them who you are. Just have them do stuff and then go, oh, by the way, I do this for a living.
Yeah.
Or taking a look specifically about like coming alongside in a little bit like more capacity. But when you're just in and went out for one day, even though I know that's what industry feels like they can handle, I'm not sure that's really super effective unless it comes into a program that's already with kids who are really interested. So,
very true.
So that's on our end where we have to build that interest. That's different from what the school system does, right? So the school system's job is to educate everybody, mm-hmm. right? I don't have that problem, right? I can grab you a certain set of kids. So again, I think once we know what industry wants is capable of doing, then we can tailor experiences for them. But until then, industry kind of gets stuck, right? You can come in and do a speaker. You may want to donate some equipment, and then you'll do some sort of, like financial types of things. All those are great. I'm not saying no. We definitely want those things. But if a company really is interested in making more workforce for their company, they have to really kind of understand that it's a longer commitment than just one afternoon.
Yeah.
And I always encourage companies to go, well, come in, take a look, see what club really speaks to you, what group of kids speak to you. And the ones that are in for the long haul are the ones that really are does really, really good work with us. We've had companies that actually sponsor my entire intern program.
Wow.
So that was it's a lift for us, so that we don't really have to worry about budgets for those employees, which is really great. We've had ones that come in and pay for an entire lab. And again, that just gets everybody off the ground, right? So there's a whole bunch of different ways that industry can come in, but to be more effective, I think they need to know what even the options are, and I'm not sure they do.
Yes, spotlighting the career paths, the adding perspective to kids, and creating that through a tangible STEM experience where they can come into a lab type environment, right, and help help create.
And visits to companies. Sometimes I know that's really
Oh,
hard.
yeah, right.
But again, say they come in and they're like, "Oh, we had a really good time. Do you guys want to come visit?" You're like, "Yeah, let's go visit." Okay. Again, it's not just a one and done type of thing. I look at it like missionary work. There's definitely places for these things, but again, we're in it every day.
Yeah.
So we want people to come in that it makes a big sense for them, and short duration experiences are fine. I used to do them all the time, and I think they're really important. I think they have a lot of power, but we got to make sure that we got the right kids seeing the right stuff, because if you have kids that aren't ready to see that stuff,
it's
yeah. Right. Well, and I've kind of learned that the hard way. So we have wonderful partnerships with Space and Rocket Center. Meta sponsors scholarships to Space Camp every year for us. First year, we were just giving Space Camp scholarships and things like that out. I had kids that didn't show. That's it's a $1,500 scholarship. Weren't showing, just didn't show up. And the reason why was because they weren't ready to have that type of experience. Their family wasn't ready for them to be away for a week. And I was still pretty new in the position, trying to figure out what would work. I never thought that I would have anybody that wouldn't take a free Space Camp experience. So we had to go back and really look at okay, well, how do I get kids ready to say yes to something like that? And so we actually work all year to identify kids and really hype up that program so that they want to take it. So again, it kind of takes a whole lot of everything. But yeah, I think companies can really see the benefit if they're in that target of working with kids again, it's not like a speaker's bad, but I think
it's in a more purposeful way.
Yeah,
right?
That's I think the best way of explaining it. Yeah,
and especially working with an organization like yours and helping add that perspective to them, to industry, to understand that there are different barriers. It's not just writing the check. It's not just helping make sure we can get kids to Space Camp, because there's different dynamics and barriers that everybody's going through. That I think educating industry on that to where we can design the meaningful and the right kind of pathways for kids.
Right. And generally what we find is it starts a lot earlier than companies are comfortable with. I hear that a lot. I want to come talk to high school kids. Those kids have already made decisions. And they should. College expensive. I mean, what is it? Vanderbilt's now at 6 figures a year.
Wow. Yeah.
That's insane, right? And people pay it, which is also kind of insane. So kids can't afford to just go to college undecided. So by the time they get to high school, they kind of know what lane they're in. because they have to, because it's just so expensive, because they're thinking about scholarships and things like
Yeah,
that
we
really,
talk
really
about that
early.
middle school, 7th, 8th grade kind
Yeah,
of being a
so
sweet
we're
spot.
feeling like that if you're really looking for career stuff, it sounds crazy. Third and fourth graders actually where you need
Wow.
to start
Okay.
working, because those kids are open to everything. And you can really move them into really cool things if you give them the right encouragement. By the time, like, so it's kind of just the big steer at third and fourth grade,
Mhm.
STEM, yes or no, right? And if you give them the right experiences that early, it's usually yes, because we're fun. Because I'm biased, but it's cool because we're fun. You get to play with robots and play with Lego. I get paid to play with Lego. Okay. And then you can start kind of forming it from there. And again, schools have a different goal.
Yeah.
Like they don't have time to have those types of things. But I really do say, and I know for industry that gets a little scary at third grade, it's really not. The difference between a third grader and a seventh grader is speed of how fast they get through things. But the kids are just so much more excited about the stuff you're doing. It's so much better. I mean, so yeah, because that's where the interest happens to be. Because I'm sure I could ask you, like, what'd you want to be when you grew up?
I've described it a couple times, but I was originally on an art scholarship and
Okay.
was going to go in industrial design. But
Okay.
I was always working on computers as I
Uh-huh.
was growing up and making money at that. And so I made the switch later. Nobody's journey is the same,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
But this is still variation on theme, right? Like
yes,
if you look
yeah,
at the components of that,
yeah,
you're kind of sitting here, right? Going,
and
oh, wait, this is creative,
yes, yeah,
but it's still kind of technical, so it's all of those things. So if you look at the components of what you want to be when you were younger,
yeah.
it's the creative thing that you were interested in,
and
right?
and I can trace it back to almost a specific moment in
Mhm.
my life. Of course, some influences along the way, and this is a question that we ask everybody. So, what was that spark for you? Do you recall
Mhm.
a moment in your life as a kid that it created it for you?
So again, because I've had times through this for the ecosystems program to really like reflect on my own career
Yeah.
journey, but I tell kids that I got a microscope when I was 7 years old. And I love that thing.
Mm.
Like I would look at everything under a microscope. It wasn't even a good microscope. Didn't even have a light. It had a mirror. It's really hard to see stuff. But that really like sparked my understanding of the world that I couldn't see. So my undergrad's in biology. But I also really like kids. So I had a lot of, I didn't really know that I was good at kids actually until I was in college.
Okay.
I had gone home to visit my family at the school. And of course, in college, you get out a little earlier than the elementary school. So I'd gone to my little brother's school to help him, his like gifted program did a frog dissection. So I went over to help them and I ended up running the whole thing. And the teacher's like, oh my
Nice.
gosh, you're so good at this. And I never had considered education as something I was like just good at. But then I realized I'm a nerd and I don't ever stop talking, as you can see. So like it just kind of ends up that I'm working with this. I also had a lot of experiences when I was in high school with really strong African American leaders in my life. So it's no accident that I ended up working
Yeah.
with this population because I had really influential people who were from underserved communities and they kind of put that in me. I didn't really, again, until I sat and really looked at it, I really didn't see all those pieces together. And I think that's important for everybody in industry to do too, is to look at their own career path so that they can go, oh, it was way over here. I
Yeah.
think that's important.
Yeah, and tying it back to industry, like getting them to understand, like I get why we want to focus or why they want to focus on high school and college kids. They're
Mm-hmm.
going to come into the workforce a lot sooner, but getting them to take some additional steps to go earlier, right, and to make
Mm-hmm.
an impact in kids' lives earlier. Because what we're describing as our own experiences, you're exactly right. It started early, right? There
Mm-hmm. It
was
really
some
did.
spark that kind of led down this pathway. And what we have learned is no pathway is the same. It's not this linear path
Nope.
normally. it's a braided river,
Right, which is
right?
the thing I absolutely
Yeah.
love, and that's definitely the career type of model that I'm with at this point.
Mhm.
And that braided river model is, but we got to get kids in the right part of the river,
Yes, yes, we
right?
do.
And so that's the important part, not where they actually end up, but if they're that the river, there's always that flow to it. There's some directionality, so every experience you have matters,
Right.
and I think that's the other thing too that kids need to understand, and that adults that are honestly, I feel like adults that look like them and adults that are closer to their age have extra responsibility to reach back and help
Identity is
those
so
kids.
important with students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't do everything. I'm old. So there are things that my interns can do that I will never be able to do because I'm not 19. My youngest one is 18. I have one who was actually, he's a graduate of our Boys and Girls Club program. He's our State Youth of the Year. He's majoring in computer science. And so he's actually now working as an intern in our department. So he is back teaching computer science in the club that he learned to code in. So
kind of journeys and stories.
So wonderful. And Philip's an amazing person. And we're really thrilled to have him on staff with us because he was just an amazing kid, so he's just amazing. So, and there's so many of them that are like that. And I think for industry too, if they got to see what kids if let it in, it's okay. Go into classrooms, go into places like this, and you'll see what you need to do. You'll see it it's easy, and but if it's not a list, you've got to just kind of get in there and kind of see it for yourself and go, oh, what if I brought this in? What if I did that thing? And also know that teachers are dealing with a lot more regulations than out of school time people are. So there's less opportunities there. But in the school systems, they also have opportunities for more trips and more things in the after school spaces. They're maybe open to those things as well. What I find, we have a partnership with Huntsville City Schools. And so when we go into after school spaces, so we actually have, it's a partnership. So we actually have the teachers do math and reading with the kids, and then we come in and do STEM. And that partnership's been really effective. What we find is that because of state mandates, they don't have a lot of time to do STEM. So anything will work for them.
Yeah.
They literally have things in boxes that they've never used because they just don't, especially if you're a school that's on the failing list. You have a lot more regulations on your reading, because of the Literacy Act, which is great. But those schools are required, 120 minutes of reading a day. So guess what subject they don't have at all? I'm sure you've heard that.
Quite a few. Specific math and science and many others. So let's talk about the teachers for a second. What would be your call to action as you're going through ecosystem design, and we're really putting a focus on what are the successes, what are the challenges? What role do you see the teachers and schools playing?
So I feel like the teachers in schools, need to understand, again, what's out there. So one of the things, we have grants from 21st Century Learning, which is a federal program. One of the things that they do really well is they give us a curated list of all of the basically places that we can go and what types of things they offer.
Okay.
So I think for schools, they need something like that, where here's all the players in town that offer things. Here's the things they offer. Because I think sometimes they're going to pick field trips, and I was in this business based on what looked interesting to them. But if they could see some different options, they may pick some different things for their kids. I think then, if there's an industry partner that goes, oh, wait, you're going to this place? Oh, we do those things. So there's an industry. So it's okay, I'm a middle school science teacher and we're doing rocks as a unit. Okay, cool. I can go here, 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 and here. These people can call me. I can call them in. They can do a virtual meeting. With virtual spaces, we've got so much more options now, but they need to have everything curated for them because they just don't have a lot of time. And I think making on the district level, making, trying to think of these, like enrichment experiences more of a priority, I think probably going to be a good thing, because they just get through the curriculum every day,
Yeah.
and that enrichment sometimes just kind of goes away, except for very like really really like teachers that have a lot more flexibility.
Yeah, and as a parent, like my kids going through different enrichment classes and just like looking at some of the options. I mean, there's great things out there, but as industry and workforce is changing, as
Hmm.
technology is changing, and I mean, everybody's doing robotics
Hmm.
now. Where was robotics
Well,
10 or
right.
15 years
It
ago,
was
right?
there. It
Right,
was there, but it just wasn't as big, right?
exactly. And,
Yeah.
and as these things are evolving, I think figuring out how to help augment the enrichment experiences in schools, I think organizations like yours and industry really play a key role
They
in that.
do.
Yeah.
They do. And again, it's just because teachers have so much more to deal with, to make things as kind of like user friendly for them as possible, because they have what, 20 minutes a day to plan?
Mhm.
That I need an hour every day just to get my email done, and I do a bad job at that.
Yeah.
I've been trying to talk to me for a while. So, and I don't even teach 40 hours a week. I only teach like 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
So like we have to make things just as easy as possible for them. And then whatever we can take off the plate for them, I think they'll be more likely to do that. I think the other thing we have to do is kind of remove some roadblocks as far as like getting teachers extra training. For the most part, sometimes they don't necessarily get the right CEU credits or stipends or things like that. They need to have equipment to make sure that they have the things that they're going to do. But at the same time, we got to make sure they have time in the day to do it.
Yeah,
Like you can
yeah.
get them trained all day long, but if they don't have time to do
Right.
the curriculum, what's the point, right?
Time seems to be one of the biggest barriers, and in a way, I mean, yeah, there's a major problem out there as far as like the disparity of resources and not having a good place to go to kind of know where can I go for X, Y, and Z. But leveraging those resources
Hmm.
and even the time of other organizations to come in and help augment their curriculums,
Hmm.
like that, it's a solution, but it's still a tough nut to
Yeah,
crack.
well, and I think I just had an idea, because one of the things like Leadership Huntsville does is they'll do like this new teacher kind of like orientation type of thing. It's like a 1 day program where they actually take new teachers through the
Mm.
city as basically like an orientation to Huntsville in general. I mean, that may be something the ecosystem should look at, is like ways for like, oh, are you a STEM teacher? Like a welcome kit
Yeah,
type of
hey,
thing,
yeah.
right? Yeah, like I mean, I think those things can be really important too, because we have a lot of people coming in and out of the
Mhm.
system. How do we make sure that they have access to the best things? And so, again,
Right.
we just don't want people wandering around in the dark. I mean, that's so
Yeah,
much
and
of
that
it.
and that continuity too. As teachers are moving around and going on to different roles,
Hmm.
and stepping into others, having that continuity to okay, I'm in this ecosystem. What do I have at my disposal?
Right. I think some of the things that I see too from like from the funding and industry perspective is that you get relationships with a specific teacher,
Hmm.
and then that teacher leaves,
Yeah.
and then where are you at? You're nowhere. So how do we ensure continuity even if a teacher leaves, because those kids are still there?
Yep.
So I mean, and I spend a lot of time in my organization thinking about that continuity, like to make sure that, because my interns do transition out,
Hmm.
and like how do we do that in a way that's not jarring or upsetting to children?
Very much so.
Because and and to make sure that they understand the why they're leaving, but like how to ensure that the program keeps going and it's not specifically to that one teacher. We see that a lot. Like you'll get a teacher who's like really into 3D printing, gets a grant for 3D printers, and then they leave, and that 3D printer's just sitting there.
Falls off. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're like, "Aw, y'all got a 3D printer. Does anyone know how to use it?" They're like, "No." So that's the other thing too, is like from industry, it could be like more technical training
Hmm.
on things, right? I will tell you, 3D design and 3D modeling are one of the things that everybody needs training on. Like you can't just walk in and 3D print.
No.
Like it's just,
Yeah.
and anybody who says they can is lying, because I have broken so many things. And I'm not even a great 3D printer. I just know enough to be dangerous with those types of things. Stuff, because they'll get equipment and then we don't have any support as educators to keep the equipment running. So I think that's another area where industry can really be helpful.
Certainly.
With like technical stuff, because as STEM in the classrooms get bigger, you get more stuff. Like I have laser cutters and 3D printers and all sorts of different things that I had to teach myself how to use. When I know somebody in industry knows how to laser cut.
Definitely.
Yeah,
and I mean, thinking how any organization, because I mean, these are common resources. We've been, across the state at this point, and we've been into different labs, but there are some common things, the 3D printers and having some kind of training, especially for those that are using and trying to teach around it, would be a great resource that industry needs to play a role.
Right, and that may end up looking like working groups. I think computer science has definitely an idea for working groups too, because there's tricks and things like that in coding. Robotics, I think, is another one where it's kind of got a mini ecosystem already.
Yep.
People that have been in robotics have been in robotics for forever, because they were kids in the program. Like a lot. Like I know for a fact that the people that run First Lego League and First Tech Challenge here in the States were on robotics teams when they were kids. So like they get it, so I think there's lots of those little things that we can do. So if there's a new person coming into the field, they're not just trying to reinvent the wheel. I hear that from political people a lot, is that they get requests for things when somebody else is already doing that thing.
Yeah, and just how to connect them, right? It's vital.
Right. Not like anybody's trying to get in anybody's way, but if I was a person per se that had a heart for working with underserved girls in STEM, who's already doing that work, that may make decisions for me if I should start my own nonprofit or not, right? Yeah. Instead of just jumping in because you don't see anything. That may not be true. Again,
it does not mean that it doesn't exist,
right? Yeah. So it may be better for you to do something a little bit different. You don't know until everything's cohesive. And will it be perfect? No, that's okay. You can't turn a parked car, right?
Well said.
So you got to get going, right? Yeah. So I'm definitely one of those people that are just like, okay, do I know what I'm doing? Not exactly. It's okay. We'll figure it out as we go, and that's okay. But yeah, I think those are the things that education deals with. Is just they have a lot more regulations that they have to think about, and that industry needs to be understanding of those things because they do too.
Yeah.
And because they have their jobs and everybody's busy, so how to try to make things as easy as possible for people is also, I think, the thing that's going to be the ecosystem really needs to be focused on.
So as the next kind of call to action is you're heading into the design phase of these regional STEM ecosystems, do you have your key stakeholders identified, or do you need more industry and schools?
Yeah, so always 2 heads are better than 1, 20 is better than 2, for sure. Because of the planning phase, we do have a decent list at this point of engaged stakeholders that really are interested in the ecosystem in general, both in industry and in education nonprofit. So we're super thankful to the ecosystems for putting that planning phase in so that we had time to kind of make that, because, getting a list of people is not too terribly hard, but getting them engaged is a little bit more tricky.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, and like the stuff that you're doing is really cool too, because I'm like, oh, I know them too. That's so cool. Just to get us to go, okay, we're all actually on the same page here. And like, as much as I have great relationships with Hudson Alpha before, now we have an even deeper partnership because we're working on these projects together. I'm really interested in making sure that we get everybody at the table that we can and remove those roadblocks for them. So I really want to make sure that we put the ecosystems, again, out in those outlying areas where Hudson Alpha is really looking at Madison County. I'm looking at those outlying areas because they just have less access. And access has been the thing for me personally that really drives a lot of the decisions that I make. I know the kids that live here, his lives are incredibly different than when I drive home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And whose fault's that? It's not theirs, right? They don't decide what zip code they were born into. And during the pandemic, it was very, very obvious because of digital redlining. Like, my internet speeds were really slow here. And I went home and I had fiber. And I'm like, what the heck, man? This is ridiculous, right? Like, and it wasn't until very recently with infrastructure acts and things like that where they even had access.
Yeah.
Like just the income disparities and redlining and things like that. Those are real.
But it's that evolution, right?
Right.
There's going to be new opportunities, but new challenges too, even with that kind of connectivity. And just because they have internet does not necessarily mean that they can use the same kind of resources.
Correct. Yeah. Like the best the system could do during the pandemic was park a bus in our parking lot. I'm serious. That's what was there. It was a bus. Do you think any kids went to class?
No.
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 No. Why would they? Right? Yeah. So we're looking at those types of like kind of knock-on effects from the pandemic.
Yeah.
I think we're definitely coming out of it at this point, but there was definitely, I would say, probably this next school year will probably kind of the smoke will clear as far as what the pandemic did to kids of underserved populations, but they're behind.
They are, but I do think there's some good lessons learned, especially in education, coming out of the pandemic. That how they learn, how we teach, changed,
It
right?
did. It did.
And I do think that as the dust settles from that, I think we will be better. But yeah, there's some work to do.
Oh yeah, and I think most of it was just with the younger kids. Like putting a kindergartner on a Zoom call all day is probably not the smartest thing we could have done, but it was the only thing we could do. So I understand it. But in general, every single societal problem is felt more by underserved populations than other people. So they're always going to be the canary in the coal mine. So whatever we design, it has to work for them, then it naturally will work for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. So for teachers specifically, like we got to make sure that for a Title I school, do you have things that work for you? We should be listening to what they have to say. They are very vocal. They will tell you because they're staring at it every day. I mean, I work at here, and then with the school system, I work at Sunny Hertford Elementary, which is like a mile that way. They're like, my parents have a 5th grade education. Do you think they really have any idea what STEM is? And I'm like, well, no. So that's one of the things also that we're looking at is a different type of parent engagement model, which I think the entire ecosystem really needs to look at.
Yeah. How to reach parents, and even tying back to industry, which it's different. I mean, again, the reaching professionals in Huntsville is going to be different than reaching professionals in other communities. But what would you say there for parents? Like, what do you see as being some of the key things that we need to try and overcome to be able to reach parents? Because you're right. I mean, they're critical, right? And they may not understand the interest of their kids, the resources that are available, how to get them there.
Normally, what we find is that the parents of underserved populations do really care. They care a lot.
Good. Yeah.
That they don't have knowledge of what's out there. They don't understand the value of what's out there. I have really great kids, and we deal with the kids most of the time. Those parents are tired when they come pick up. Just get in the car. I'm exhausted. I can't deal with it right now. I get in the car. So we do parent engagement types of things, but I'm looking at specifically, and this may be something industry wants to take a look at too, is like one-page resources. So like, hey, by the way, your kid's really interested in computer science. I really need to, here's an industry snapshot of what that job is with numbers, because that's what a parent's going to pay attention to. Wait a second. How much money can you make? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How much schooling's there? You like this stuff? Like they just don't know, right? All the time I get, your kid really likes building stuff, right? And they're like, no. So what does that mean? I'm like, well, they could go in engineering. And they're like, so what, how is that a good job? Like they don't know.
Yeah. Because
again, they know what they see. So I think that parent, just a straight education about what those careers even are, and again, making it easy for them. Like I intend to be making like industry one-pagers that I'm literally going to hand out to parents going, by the way, your kid likes gardening. Here's a whole bunch of careers that they may want to think about and why it's important to do those early.
Yeah.
Because they really, I think they just don't know. I really think that that's all it is.
Well, it's a
Where like my
very,
dad is an
yeah.
engineer, he did know,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, it's very, very different. That's a very insightful thought. I mean, one thing's for sure. I mean, the parents care about the success of their kids,
Hmm.
and then being able to see those pathways, like they may not care so much about the computer games that they're playing, or really even understand why they're interested in that. But understanding, making that connection to their own child's
Right.
success will get them excited.
I will tell
Hopefully,
you,
yeah.
I was like, being on YouTube is not a job until 2020 came and I had to make YouTube videos. And I'm like, oh my God, this is a job. It's so much
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
and I didn't really have any understanding. I just didn't know. And now I'll never tell a kid the YouTuber's not a job. I'm
Mhm.
absolutely a job. It's a harder job, I think, than a regular job.
Let's make some purposeful content, but yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
if you're going to be good at it, it's a ton of
Yes, it
work,
is.
right?
Yes, it is.
And they don't like, again, I just didn't know. Like, I would ask kids all the time, I'm like, why are you watching somebody else play video games? How is that a job?
That's something that mine does
Right.
as well.
That's a job. That's a really lucrative job. Like,
Mhm.
to be a streamer is a real job, right? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay. But again, parents could be really dismissive, and I've
Yeah.
seen it across the board.
Yeah.
I had, in one of my focus groups, one of the young ladies that was in there told me she was really interested in geology, and her mom was like, that's not a real job. You can't do that. So as parents, we got to really like check ourselves and make sure that we're not stifling
Yeah.
the thing that makes your kid them, right? And they're, again, full potential, right? So I'm really like looking at making like just simple stuff so that these parents do really understand.
Well, and you've referenced the geology thing a couple times, and that's a very unique example that I think I've even learned recently what kind of roles even here in Huntsville
Hmm.
a geologist might play,
Yeah,
right?
there's a lot.
And in engineering and all kinds of
Hmm.
things, and yeah, adding perspective to parents so they know
Right.
what.
Like, so we have a partnership with the Lunar Planetary Institute in Houston, and they're all geologists. And it's hilarious because like what they do for a living, and we have, what they're doing is, it's basically a partnership with Boys and Girls Clubs where we will pick a scientist
Mhm.
based on availability and lists, and we'll have virtual engagements with them. And they're like amazing scientists. Like the one that the kids from here picked is a guy who throws rocks out of airplanes to study meteorites from Mars. Like that's his whole vibe, which is amazing.
That
I'm
is,
like,
yeah.
what? And they have really, really cool jobs. They work in extreme environments, and so they're trying to put those two people together, really cool people with really cool kids, and get them together, which is super neat too. So that's like, again, those are planetary geologists. They
Yeah.
work for NASA,
Mhm.
but they're rock people. I didn't even know there was a job where you could throw rocks out of airplanes and get paid for that,
Yeah.
because that's what he does, which is hilarious to me. And he doesn't even think he's cool. Like I talked to him, he's like, I don't know why the kids really wanted to pick me. I'm like, are you kidding? Are you
Super cool.
kidding?
Super cool. Yeah.
Right? And they don't know.
Yeah. And geology has some close connections to paleontology,
Mhm.
and we've talked with some others about that almost being a gateway science. And you've even hit on
Yeah.
the younger ages and paleontology and dinosaurs. I have learned recently that science it's one of the few things that many kids have exposure and a connection to very early in life.
That was me.
Really?
I was a dinosaur kid for sure.
Yeah, and-
100%.
Right, and-
like little
and
kid. Like
so many
5,
kids are.
Love me a
Yeah.
dinosaur.
Yeah, same. And that is one of the first connections to an element of STEM.
Right.
Right? And that's
Yeah.
great.
Dinosaurs, astronauts.
Yeah.
Those are big ones.
Yeah.
Those are the two big science ones. Like if you ask a teeny tiny kid what they want to be when they grow up, you get policeman, teacher, firefighter, astronaut, dinosaurs. Right?
Got it.
And those are
Yeah.
archetypes,
Mhm.
right? And so again, we should listen to them.
We should.
We should just listen to
And
them.
maybe we should kind of design some
Yeah.
things for parents and students
Right.
all around that too.
So
That's
yeah, and say, hey, do you know you got a dinosaur kid?
great. Mhm.
Let me talk to you about what that could be.
Definitely.
And again, going way down the river because it's so expensive.
Yeah.
Like you've got to start thinking about these much earlier because there's just too much money at stake at this point for somebody to be kind of wandering around.
Yeah.
And we all have to be understanding of that, is that we can't afford for them to have mistakes. Again, because we need so many people, you got to think about it way up here,
Yeah.
which is hard, but I think it's worth it.
Mhm.
And again, it's not as long as people think it is. I think that's the other thing too. So I've been working here 8 years, and I am putting people in workforce now, that were my kids. They are going into
That's
nursing
exciting.
school.
Yeah,
They are nurses. They are working in video game companies. They are doing that work. So even though it feels like it's like, oh, I just want to work with high school kids because that's just a couple years away, it's not that much further to go back a level. Yeah, and I think that's cool too. But yeah, I think parent understanding is the problem. It's not parent apathy.
Yeah.
All people want their best for their kids, and to say that they don't is just
agreed.
It's just not right, and again, it doesn't matter what zip code you're from. You're going to love your kid. And if you see your kid being really into something, that's a very special moment as a parent. Yeah. And everybody has that. And you just want your best for your kid, right? Yeah. You just got to know what that is. And I think that's why sometimes they get discouraged, is because like the kids themselves are like, my mom doesn't even understand that I really like this.
Right. And it's that understanding so they can help embrace it.
And right. And they will. I mean, so I have junior robotics program for first and second graders. And so I will take them to like a little exhibition that First Robotics does. Really cute. They just build with Lego. It's adorable. They get a trophy. It's fun. But that's their first experience with like a STEM competition program. Well, I make sure the parents come. And then the parents are just walking around. There's all these kids and there's robots. And then their high school programs there. So they see the international high school thing right in the same place. Yeah. And the parents are like, I had no idea my kid knew how to do any of this. And I'm like, cool.
Good.
And they're like, awesome. And that's what's to me like the super best part, is when a parent sees their kid in a different way. And then I've got them now.
Yeah.
They're coming with me. They're going to be with me for forever because they saw something in their kid that they didn't see before. And I saw it too. They just didn't know because they had to go to work.
Yeah.
And that's literally it.
But they play such a vital role.
Right. But again, they just had to go to work. Yeah. That was it. That was all it was. And so a lot of times, they'll get, complaining about parents not doing stuff at schools or things like that. They just got to go work, y'all. That's it. I'm at work. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have to go to work, and if you don't have a ton of education, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. I don't know any stay-at-home moms anymore. Maybe one or two. They're very rare. Everybody's got to go to work.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing for me that I see, is just getting those parents. Just again, I think industry can really help with that. I think the ecosystem can really do a lot of work with that too. And people like you who are more, in vein with marketing and with public engagement and design and things like that. Like that's something I think you guys could that's in your wheelhouse for sure. Yeah. That could produce things that we can just hand to people.
Well, I think it feels like it pales in comparison to the work that you all are doing, and so thank you. I mean, it's wonderful hearing the stories and the work that you all are doing, and I look forward to just seeing what really comes from y'all's work and helping make these communities better.
It takes everybody.
Yeah.
Right, and so part of this process, I was able to go to Montgomery to sit in on the state mentoring ecosystem. Completely different thing. So they are specifically looking a lot at like incarcerated youth and kids with like really like large scale problems. And the people that work in mentoring across like incarcerations and people who are having like those really big problems, they have a concept called constellation mentoring. So it's not just one person or one entity that comes in to help that person. It's a constellation of people. That's what I really feel like in the best sense the ecosystem should be, is a constellation of us. All of us have a role to play. Is nobody's any more important than anybody else, but if that person's not there or that organization's not there,
we're not going to be as strong.
Then it's just not as strong, right? It's just not as bright. Not that it can't work, but it's not as easy, So I think it does take everyone. And on my own job, yes, I have a giant staff of amazing college students, and I have funding, and I have all those things. But if I didn't have accounting and marketing and all of those other people that were helping me make me do these things, I'd be nowhere. If I didn't have units that were like looking at the schedules and making sure I had space for my robotics teams, we wouldn't have one. At the end of the day, it really does take all of us.
Yeah,
and I think that's important that everybody understands that we've all got a role to play and we all have to play it.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And maybe I'm the person who's there every day, but that doesn't mean the Rocket Center or the Botanical Gardens or Joe going to do dinosaurs isn't the coolest thing in the world, because that's Inspire.
Yeah.
Right? And those are important too.
Well, Angela, thank you so much for hosting us and for your time. Any final thoughts, resources, upcoming programs that you would like to spotlight?
So we're just finishing up our summer program right now. So we'll run till the end of July. And then we're just looking forward to the next school year. We have great partnerships with our school systems that we're looking for as well. And then I would say we're looking at about a year from now. We're opening a new club in North Huntsville.
Really?
It's a 25,000 square foot church that we were gifted to. Whitesburg Church has given us their facility. Wow. We have $1 million sponsorship from Frankie Williams car dealerships, and so we're redoing that entire facility into basically a flagship for us. So we're really excited about what it's going to look like.
I can't wait to see that. Yeah.
I have a STEM suite, so I'll have about 7 classrooms that I get to use. So I'm really excited.
Well, great. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you again for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you. Nice.
This was such an incredible day learning about the amazing work that Angela and the Boys and Girls Club are doing in our communities. Since filming this episode, Angela has helped lead the creation of the STEM Alliance of North Alabama, or SANA, one of many regional STEM learning ecosystems being built across our state that are bringing together learners of all ages, including schools, nonprofits, and industry to help grow STEM education in your communities. We'd like to thank Angela and the Boys and Girls Club of North Alabama again for hosting us and letting us help spotlight their work on Incubate Talent. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure to subscribe for more episodes and share with others to help connect STEM across your communities. Thanks again for listening to Incubate Talent and helping build your STEM ecosystem.